This meeting of the Township Council is called to order. Madam Clerk,
In accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act of the state.
we can't hear you, Madam Clerk.
I can hear him.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. My fault.
In accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act of the state of New Jersey, adequate notice of this work session, regular meeting of the Franklin Township Council was made by the posting on the front doors of the municipal building, posted on the township's website, and electronically transmitted to the officially designated newspapers, indicating that this work session regular meeting would take place via WebEx at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021.
Thank you. Something happened to my script. I'm bringing it up again. If we could all participate in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with
with
liberty.
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Councilman Chase, if you could perform the invocation.
Let us take the next few moments of silence to each seek in our own way whatever sources of inspiration will grant us the strength and power in our thoughts and decisions to be for the benefit of all people at all times. Amen.
Thank you. Madam Master Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Barrison,
here.
Councilman Chase,
Here.
Councilwoman Francois,
Here.
Mayor Kramer,
Here.
Councilman Oni Chaka,
Here.
Councilwoman Pruitt,
Here.
Councilwoman Udine,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Fasenella,
Here.
Councilman Wright.
Here.
Commendations and proclamations, we have none. We are now time for the public discussion. Do we have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Seconded.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of opening for public discussion, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. We are open for public discussion. We will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. No yielding of time. You may discuss anything to do with government. You may only come up once. And in the past, it's a little hard, over WebEx for me to let the person know that the time is up. But when the clerk beeper goes off or she signals me the time is up, I'm going to be a little more vocal about indicating the time is up. So Mr. McQueen, if you could initiate.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Anybody from the public wishing to speak, we ask that you use the chat function raise hand feature. Again, use the chat function raised hand. If you're dialed in by phone, you can use *3. Just be advised the chat itself is not monitored during the meeting. Mr. Mayor, I see Mr. Benjamin Guy wishing to speak at this time. I am unmuting.
Okay, great. State your name and address when you start.
All right, Benjamin Guy, 35 Pat Drive. There's two or three topics that I want to talk about. One is specifically, I just want to get an update from the public standpoint of where we were with the youth center. That was one thing as far as construction is concerned. I just wanted to get an update from a public standpoint about that. Second thing is, can you guys go over before the session ends what the budget criteria is for budget submissions? I know you guys are having budgetary meetings at this specific time frame. Can you just give an update on where we are with the budget submissions for this year into next year? And potentially, can you give a budget update on what, if we have any surpluses going on with the actual budgets that are going on currently right now? The third point that I want to do is this specifically for Mr. Vornlocker. Mr. Vornlocker, I sent you an email. I didn't get a response back. So I was trying to figure out, is there a way that before we start doing allocations for for what we're going to be doing for the rest of the year after, I guess, this COVID cycle. Can we get a report on where we currently are with budget shortfalls over the last 10 years? Since you've been the manager for the last 10 years here, so you would know better than anybody else where we are for our census concern, because population build out, we need to start planning about what we're doing, because this will affect the master planning also, where we're at for zoning wise around the
The only
town.
thing I can do.
So I wanted to make sure that we can actually start planning, and everybody else can actually know what's going on with the town exactly, because sometimes this information isn't public knowledge to a lot of people, and we need to, if we're going to be having new flux of people come into town, we need to be able to plan accordingly. So I wanted to make sure that that was known. And then there was additional comment about whether any budget shortfalls that we currently have for planning based on what we're doing for the census itself. And then also if Mr. Healy can give an update on where we are with the master plan, and accomplishments from last master plan into the revisions that's going on currently right now. So those are my comments at this specific time frame.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a caller with 732-715 is what the number starts with. You are now unmuted, 732-715.
Thank you. Skip Schaefer, 2 Lair Terrace, Somerset. I couldn't figure out how to come on, use the chat raised hand feature, so that's why I'm on the phone. Congratulations to our new councilwoman, Ms. Uden. We appreciate your service, and I wish you success on the council there. Congratulations to Public Safety Director Spruill for the recent promotions in the Franklin Township Police Department, and specifically how the department is becoming more and more diverse as it looks to be more representative of our whole community. Congratulations to the mayor. Thank you for your recent letter to the editor, to the Franklin Reporter, in regards to just staying vigilant in regards to this pandemic. Yes, vaccines are coming out, and hopefully we've turned the corner, but we still need to remain vigilant, and Mayor, keep pushing that message across. Real quick, I brought this up many times in the years past. Any town meetings on Channel 29 on Comcast, 90% of them or more, it's all video and no audio. Pretty frustrating. So that's just a quick item on that. What I really want to talk about tonight is it's pothole season again. And the problem I want to speak to has been around for 5 or 6 years. I've spoken to Mr. Bornlacher about it on a couple of occasions, and he has expressed the same frustration that I'm going to vocalize tonight, and that is a pair of Conrail crossings on Veronica Avenue and Clyde Road. This is a dead railroad track, has been dead for 8 or 9 years, and both crossings not only have heavy car traffic, but they're both in industrial areas, so they get a pounding every day by 18-wheelers. And you can put safety cones up when the holes get really bad and people got to slow down. You can put signs up to call Conrail and voice a complaint, but nobody does that. Last year I called Conrail once a month for 5 months straight, spoke to the same guy, kept telling me he was putting work orders in, but obviously nothing happened. Somehow or another, we've got to get those railroad tracks torn up, at least across where they cross the road, so we can pave those areas once and for all, so they don't constantly open up due to the heavy car and especially 18-wheeler traffic. So
Thank you, Mr.
I
Schaefer.
just wanted to bring that to council's attention. Residents aren't going to be able to do it with a phone number, with a phone
Mr. Schaefer, your
call.
time is
So
up.
hopefully council can,
Mr. Schaefer, your time is up. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have another caller, 908 are the first three. It's a 908 area code. They are unmuted. 908-305.
8416, that's Jim Johnston at 34 Norwich Place in Somerset. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I'd like to talk about the development on the South Middlebush Road, and in reference to that, I submitted a Oprah request for a file that would show the all the itemized disbursements from the Open Space Trust Fund going back the past 5 years. And we got the file back, and thank you very much for that. We appreciate that. We got the file back from the Oprah request, and we're not that knowledgeable enough to be able to interpret the data in there. But at first glance, it does look to me like they're taking money out of the Open Space Trust Fund and spending it on other things that have nothing to do with open space. But I'll be showing it around. I'll be passing it around to some of you, and maybe you can help us to interpret what it means. And now getting back to the South Middlebush Road, we have a petition out there that called the Help Preserve South Middlebush Scenic Corridor, and we now have about over 2,000 signatures, and about 80 or 90 people have written comments in the petition, which you can go and read yourself. And so we're opposed to having to we're opposed to the whole idea of and because it's an agricultural zone, okay? And one question I had was apparently what we found out was the house of worship. Correct me if I'm wrong. Going back 6 years ago is when the house of worship came in and they purchased the land there, and then after that it got transferred to the zoning board, and many of us were attending the zoning board last week. And I hear some noise. Okay. Oh, let me know when my time is up. Okay, I don't want to go over my time.
You have about
So,
40 seconds.
Okay, and also the decimation of a forested ecosystem, with all the wildlife and the endangered birds, that's all going to be gone now, and then the buildings themselves with the runoff and the pollution and all this on agricultural land, and also the state and county have not given permission to widen South Middlebush Road, which is only a 2-lane road. So what's going to happen when all that traffic goes on there? Okay. Well, that's all I have to say. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to shift for a second to the township attorney because there may be several people with similar questions. Could you address the issue of projects before the zoning board as it relates to?
Mr. Mayor, as you know, the zoning board and the planning board are independent land use boards. The council does not really have any authority at all to direct either how or when they make their decisions on applications. They're guided by the municipal land use law and a pretty well-developed set of case law as to how they consider their applications. Certainly applications with regards to houses of worship also have federal and state law implications that protect the way that those applications are heard. So, anybody who has comments on those applications, probably the appropriate thing to do is direct them to make those comments before the zoning board when it is that the public hearing is held.
That being said, anyone can discuss whatever they want in the public portion, anything to do with government. However, don't expect a response from council. Mr. McQueen, pick the next
Yes.
person.
Ali Convery is unmuted at this time.
Yes. Leah Convery, 43 Townsend Court, Franklin Park. I'm actually also want to discuss the South Middlebush projects. Um, I've lived here all of my life. I've lived in, my grandparents used to live by New Brunswick Road and Cedar Grove Road, and my parents lived in Griggstown, and now I live in Franklin Park. So South Middlebush Road has always been a major thoroughfare. The traffic situation is, even with COVID and the less traffic that we've had, it's still been atrocious. The Corderloo Lane and Jacques Lane area has always been a terrible, very dangerous couple of intersections. And now with these houses of worship going up, or supposedly going up, it's going to get worse. They're not going to widen the road. It's not going to get any better. The county is responsible for the road. Am I correct? In thinking, okay, the county is responsible. So, but it cuts right through our town. My biggest problems are, these are agricultural. These are Franklin Township agricultural zones, and they're the wildlife. There, you had a couple people on last year talking about the deer population, and cars hitting deers. That I see on a daily basis, cars just mowing down animals on the side of the road. Which, is that a township thing to clean up the dead animals? That's not, it's a county thing as well. Okay, so do you guys have any influence with them? Who do we call if we see dead animals on the road? Mr. Borlacher, do you have an idea who?
It should report it to the non-emergency number for the police department.
For Franklin Township Police? Okay.
Yep.
So, you said to talk to the zoning board. They're not hearing. They're not hearing public comment on it. So you guys are kind of kicking it back and forth, and the petition right now has over 2,000 signatures, and the citizens aren't being listened to about any of it, whether it be traffic, or you're chopping down a bunch of trees, or that you're putting septic tanks in an agricultural zone. And this was supposed to be, this is not supposed to be putting up buildings here. The environmental problems are an issue. Everybody cares about the environment, except when, I don't know, when something like this goes up. So how do we get the people from the zoning board to listen to the citizens' concerns? Does anybody know?
Mr. Rainone, please.
Once again, there's a portion of that hearing at which the citizens have a right to make comment. The point of it being, however, that the property is zoned what it's zoned under state law. Houses of worship are inherently beneficial uses, which means they're essentially permitted in any zone. So while we go through all of the site plan parts of it, when you say that they're not hearing the public, I'm assuming that they're taking public comment. You just don't think that they're being swayed by it. I assume that what you're saying.
They're not taking public comment. They're not taking public comment on.
Well, at some point. At some point in time, they will, that will happen. So there is a portion of that meeting that will happen.
Mr. Rainone, if I could just add, I think where the confusion lies here, and there has been some correspondence between the zoning board of adjustment attorney and Mr. Johnston, who spoke earlier, and that is that the process of a zoning board of adjustment hearing is much like a trial, and there is testimony. And there is the right of both the applicant and the board attorney and the board members to question under oath witnesses who are providing testimony. And this
Correct.
process in this hearing is a long one. And when the only testimony given in a particular hearing night is from an engineer, the only appropriate questioning, even by the public who would be sworn to question the engineer, is to question the engineer's testimony. And that has not been the desire of many people who have dialed in, so to speak, for this meeting, who are opposed to this. There's a learning curve here, and this process needs to follow a judicial process, because really our zoning board of adjustment act as judges in this matter.
Correct. And that's exactly correct, Mr. Pornlocker. But there will be, there's a point where people will be heard. They just haven't gotten to that point yet.
That's right. At the end of all testimony is when the public can be heard and offer their opinion on the application.
Correct. Exactly.
Mr. McQueen, next person, please.
Yes, there is Katie Mayfield. You are now unmuted. Katie Mayfield.
Hi, yes, this is Katie Mayfield of 566 South Middlebush Road, and I wanted to, I have my baby daughter here, so if you hear any noise in the background, that's why. But I wanted to commend Mayor Kramer. Thank you so much for the job that you're doing in the midst of this pandemic, keeping us all updated on social media and all the different forums, keeping our community as safe as possible in this emergency. Thank you so much. I also wanted to make a comment on the proposed houses of worship on South Middlebush Road. My family and I moved here 2 years ago. We're a young family. We have a new baby, 15 months old. We're so excited to become a part of the school systems here. One of the reasons that we left Middlesex County was to come to an area with more open space for our family, so that actually we can walk outside of our house and be right on Snyder's farm, or walk through the trails. And it's a scary prospect for us with young children and a growing family to see the traffic potentially be increasing on this really dangerous intersection, and to see the wildlife. This area is known across the state as being, like, in central Jersey, this really densely populated area. You can find open space here. And that's the reason my family and I bought property here, that we pay taxes, that we want to be a part of this community. And I understand that there are very many complicated processes and committees that we're all trying to show up to as much as possible. But, as our fearless mayor, I do want to, alert you that young families who are moving to this area are really, really concerned, especially about the dual approvals of 2 houses of worship in a very, very close location. Thank you so much for the time, Mayor.
Thank you very much for your kind words.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, we have Stan. You are now unmuted, Stanley.
Good evening, Stanislav Verach, 22 Heather Drive. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I would like to just mention a few words about our environment. And I'm specifically concerned about the overdevelopment with lots of warehouses, and also as it relates to the requirement from states to have updated stormwater ordinance. And my concern is that as we delay this passing new ordinance, which Environmental Commission prepared and made it stricter than the minimum requirement from the state, and the Environmental Commission had a reason to do that, just like many other towns who made the ordinance already and made it stricter, which is forward thinking about the dangers of coming climate change and increased likelihood of floods. So when we have so many warehouses, that dramatically increases the proportion of impervious surfaces, which leads to local floods, hence increasing the chances of property damage, which is of course of concern of all of us residents of this township, as well as disruptions of infrastructure, be it road, be it power lines, and whatnot. So yeah, my comment is twofold: overdevelopment, that we have too many warehouses. This is dangerous, to my opinion, from the environmental viewpoint, and also the delay of passing the updated stormwater ordinance. If you could please comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we have Serini Valerie. You're unmuted.
Hi, thank you very much for giving me opportunity to speak. My name is Srini Valuri and I live on at 4 Cartier Drive. And I've been in Franklin Park for the past 15 to 17 years. And the reason why I chose Franklin Park is a lot of preserved lands. When we first saw preserved lands, I thought these will be really preserved and Township will support these preserved lands and have a lot of farmlands so that there won't be any construction on South Middlebush Road. So, but we have been hearing about these two religious institutions, and South Middlebush Road may not be a right place for these because of the traffic this one will invite. So even on South Middlebush Road, on Snyder Farms, if you have, during the season of Halloween season, even for hay rides, the whole traffic that we get on South Middlebush Road is too much to manage even for the township. Now, imagine you have, it's the same hay rides traffic once a week. So we Indians have a lot of festivals, and every month there is 1 or 2 festivals. So Township, I think, must be prepared for this much traffic. And if there's no plans for widening South Middlebush Road, then it's going to be a nightmare. I mean, with even as someone mentioned, like even in COVID time, the traffic is too much on South Middlebush Road. So, and one thing I request you to do is talk to South Brunswick Township, talk to Wells Fargo Bank on New Road. There's a religious institution there. Ask them the concerns and inconvenience they face whenever there is any Indian festival there. So you need, I mean, though you put everything on zoning board and all other agencies and departments, so as township residents, we would like, we'd be more than happy for our township, you guys to work with them and see what best you can do for the township residents. So 2 years back, we had a big, we attended a lot of hearings for the Catalpa Farms, the sports complex, the mega complex that was approved. We would like to get an update on that one as well. So imagine you have the sports complex on South Middlebush Road, and these two mega religious institutions that will have a lot of traffic every week. Again, it's going to be an inconvenience for all the residents of not only Franklin Township, even the nearby townships. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Mayor, I do not see anybody else wishing to speak at this time that has not already spoke. We're asking anybody that did speak to use the chat function, raise hand to lower your hand. If you dialed in by phone, use the *3 to lower your hand.
I'm looking up and down. There's one hand still up, but I think that was Mr. Schaefer.
Yep, they spoke.
Okay. I see no one else either. So we have a motion.
Seeing no one else looking to speak from the public on motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
Second that.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of closing public portion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Motion is carried. The public session is closed. We'll now do council comments, starting with Councilman Onigiaka.
Mayor, I don't have much to say this time.
Okay, and I appreciate that because, as I told council, we have community development block grants, Hamilton Street Special District, the second ordinance hearing to all go through tonight, and council discussion item of cannabis. So we've got quite a bit to do. So short comments are appreciated. Councilman Vasanella. Oh, I'm sorry, Deputy. I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor. I will be calling on you again. Councilwoman Crystal Pruitt.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. We've had financial oversight, which I'll leave to the mayor. We did have public safety this evening, along with my colleagues, Deputy Mayor Vasanella and Councilman Wright and the mayor. I have just a few things to report out on. Our police department will be participating on a Courageous Leadership web event. It's a partnership between Robert Wood Johnson and our police department. That will be occurring on noon at noon on Thursday of this week, so the 25th of March. The Adult Citizen Academy will be starting up on May 5th. That will be virtual, and applications to participate will be pending. Hopefully they will be available this week. I would check the police's social media as well as our township site. August 3rd this year is National Night Out. To be determined what method we participate in that being mindful that we are still in a pandemic. And the second meeting in April, so that's April 27th, we will be getting an annual report from our department. And last report out, I asked Police Director Spruill to do a special edition TNT, so Tuesday Night Talk, which will occur on the 30th, so next Tuesday, just to discuss bias crimes and bias crimes reporting, and just letting our township residents know their rights when it comes to bias crimes and bias incidents, and as well as a little primer on what happens when those crimes are reported. So keep on a lookout for that, but that will be happening next Tuesday. And just a small comment to center our AAPI community and all the communities that have been touched by gun violence this past couple of days. That we see you and we stand with you during this definitely frightening and difficult time. So just want to share those few words that we stand with you, and you are part of our community and part of our family, and when you mourn, we mourn with you. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Pruitt. Councilwoman Kimberly Francois.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like for Vince Dominic, who happens to be on this call tonight, if he would give us an update on the construction of the youth center and the project in general. Vince, are you in response to the question that came up regarding the youth center status?
Thank you, Councilwoman. If you drive by right now, you'll see that the building is fully enclosed. They are doing the interior fit out. PSE&G has finally set the pole, and hopefully the transformer will be installed sometime in the near future, because things that we need to have for the electricity, such as the elevator. The expectation in the next 2 to 3 months, it should be substantially complete. Safi has been working with our architect to ready to go out to bid for the fit out regarding the furniture and everything else. Bob McQueen has been working with the various consultants, the IT facilities, the lines, the security, and everything else. It's probably 75% complete. Like, if there aren't any delays with PSE&G or any of the other contracts with COVID, we do expect the building, like I said, to be complete in the next 2 or 3 months. The parking lot across the street is complete except for a final top course. The drainage work is in. Once it's complete, we will be finishing off the sidewalks later on. on that street, probably in June or July, once it's completely done, so that we don't interfere with the building.
Thank you, Vince. So, Mr. Mayor, that concludes my council comments on behalf of Vince. Thank you.
Councilwoman Francois has a mouthpiece. Very good. One of the great things about doing a WebEx is I can see everyone's name, and maybe I can pronounce it correctly this time. Councilman Ambassador, I messed it up.
It's only a year, Mayor, since I came on board. It took you 4 years to get the Will's name right. So it's 4 years. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so I don't have much to report. I was also in the financial oversight, which the mayor would provide an update on. I attended the fire prevention meeting with our Councilwoman Dean. I think she would report that out. I just want to congratulate Councilwoman Udin because she took the initiative to organize a meeting with all the committee people in our ward, which I happen to live in her ward, which was very, very useful and beneficial to all of us. She's doing a great job reaching out to the people of the community, and I think that that's probably going to become a model for all of us. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Shipa Udin.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. So just business as usual right now, meeting with the second ward residents. I did have an internal town hall that I did meet with some of our key stakeholders and just reaching out to make sure I'm understanding any concerns and issues and feedback, and just opening my door and making sure that their voices are heard. So thank you, Ram and Mayor Kramer, for attending that session. There's going to be more on a monthly base. At least once a month is what my frequency will be for my residents, just to make sure that they have an avenue to touch base. We did have a fire prevention board meeting, which Ram and I attended, and it was just more of a status update, kind of going over the overview of minutes from the prior meeting, and if there were any unfinished business. So nothing major to report, but I think there's an upcoming election, and they were just discussing that. So that's pretty much wrapping it up, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Chase.
Me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. No committee meeting since the last council meeting. We have a land use committee meeting tomorrow night, and just received, presumably other members of the committee received, the draft of the stormwater management ordinance, which we're required by the state to have an updated ordinance incorporating requirements for green infrastructure. Our previous ordinance was really ahead of where most towns in the state have been in its requirements, and I think we're maintaining those advances, but I haven't had a chance to read it yet. I will have to before the meeting tomorrow night. For the situation on South Middlebush Road, I think the Mr. Raynone has explained the procedure, and I assure you that at the end of however many sessions it takes, the public will have a chance to express their opinions. However, the variances involved are really variances of side yard and things like that. Because of we really have to allow houses of worship in all zones, it's unlikely that they will have any way to turn the Dada Bhagwan Institute down. But there's still a lot of debate on exactly where on the property the proposed temple would do the least harm to the environment. I remember many years ago a zoning board case that went on for 13 meetings over almost 2 years. So be patient. And I think that's probably enough. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Did you want to address the warehouse issue?
Well, again, the warehouses are proposed in what is now the business and industry zone. They're permitted in that zone. And there will be a lot of trees cut down for warehouses to be put up. We do have our provisions for either planting new trees or putting money into the shade tree account. And actually, I'd like to see the shade tree account used more to plant more trees and not just along the streets in order to fix more carbon dioxide. Another possibility, which the Environmental Commission is very interested in, is having what we call green roofs, where you have a shallow layer of soil and then herbaceous plants on top of a building, which decrease both the cooling need in summer and the heating need in the winter, and also absorb a good deal of the rain that falls on the roof. So this is a way to mitigate runoff, but it remains to be seen. I don't know that we can require this in any cases. We can try to figure out ways to encourage it. But this warehouse is springing up everywhere. Today's Trenton Times, the lead article was explosion of warehouses in Hamilton Township. So it's not just Franklin. We do restrict them to the business and industry zone, which is getting to be close to build out. Okay.
Okay, thank you. As only you could have put it. Councilman Carl Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Real quick. Coming up, we have an adjustment, a second reading on the Churchill Millstone area that'll be presented by Mark Healy. And I want to thank our executive director for helping put this into place. Councilwoman Francois and I are both on the redevelopment agency, and we've worked hard to put this in place for the area. It'll change the density of the area, more green space, which I am second only to Councilman Chase on. So I want to thank Councilman Chase. He's definitely taught me well. On the Hamilton Street with Councilman Vassanella, that should be a zero-sum game. But Councilman Vassanella was in on the inner workings along with that executive director. And that should be a win for everyone in the SID district. And that looks like it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Wright. Deputy Mayor Vassanella. My apologies to you earlier.
Mayor, it's fine. I was just about to hit the unmute button when you kind of corrected the situation. Anyway, so getting to something, I think Councilman Chase was mentioning, Shade Tree Commission. Tomorrow night, by the way, we do have the land use, and that's going to be a big meeting. And public safety, which Councilwoman Pruitt gave the readout on this evening. And I was also at a Housing Resource Center meeting, but because of the time concerns, I wanted to deal mainly with Shade Tree, which I was approached recently from a member who brought to my attention that I believe it's the only committee or commission or board in the town that doesn't actually have a council liaison. And I suggested I would bring that, the idea of that being a possibility to my council colleagues. And I know I was just talked to Mayor recently about it. I don't know what the law is concerning different committees have different powers, and other ones, certain things have to be done by ordinance. Maybe the clerk or the attorney could confirm. I believe the Shade Tree Commission, if council did find it beneficial to appoint a liaison or make it that there's a liaison from the council, that we can do that without having to adjust an ordinance. And I just want to confirm if that's correct, that we can do that.
That is correct, Councilman. There's never an issue with the council deciding that it wants one of its members to attend any committee meeting.
Okay. Well, didn't bring this up because I specifically wanted to jump onto that position, but I am happy to serve in that capacity. I admire the work that the trade sheet commit. I know, Mayor, you're jumping at the no, but I admire the work that they do. I just want people. I didn't bring it to the council in order for me to get the position, but I would be happy to serve as best as I can in that position if council thought it would be beneficial to have a liaison.
I take this opportunity to nominate the Honorable Deputy Mayor James Vassanella for the Shade Tree Commission liaison.
Second.
Any other nominations?
I move that the nominations be closed.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. You don't have a vote, Mr. Vassanella.
I know. Well, in all seriousness, though, thank you, because although the Shade Tree Commission doesn't get a lot of recognition throughout the year, what they do probably now more than ever with all the environmental concerns and excuse me, that the township wants to be leaders on, their work is very important. So I do appreciate my colleagues going along with this idea, and even thank you for appointing me. That's it for this evening, Mayor, from me. Thank you.
Thank you. For my comments, yes, we had a Financial Oversight Committee meeting. We hammered out some final capital expenditures on the budget, throwing some out, keeping some. And then a large portion of the meeting was spent discussing the American Recovery Act money. The township is getting $6.8 million in 2 installments split in half. One of them very soon, one down the road. And what we learned by the end of the discussion is we don't know very much because the federal government doesn't know very much about how the money will be, how it should be allocated. Maybe Mr. Bornlocker can talk about briefly about the webinar he attended today, but there's going to be a lot of discussion, and if the money's good, but we want to use it to the best advantage of Franklin. I'm going to look at my notes and you guys get to look at my bald head. The audio problem of the TV site, I understand is a Comcast issue, but it's been going on for a very long time. In our form of government, I can't tell Mr. McQueen to do anything, but I can ask Mr. Vornlocker to ask Mr. McQueen to try once again to see if we can clear that up with Comcast. You know, video is fine, but without the audio, the channel is worthless. Thank you, Mr. Schaefer, for bringing that up. And the Conrail problem, maybe you can touch on that in your comments, Mr. Vornlocker.
I will.
It's a difficult thing. Mr. Johnson, about the open space money, you indicated that you thought some of it might have been spent on other things besides open space. I will point out we call it the Open Space Fund, but it's actually, let me see if I can get them all, open space, recreation, historic, and farmland preservation. So that might be some of the confusion, but if you do have questions, you're welcome to email me and I will help hammer those out. I am confident the money is being spent correctly, but maybe you'll find something that we need to correct. I'll leave any comments on Catalpa to the manager. And that's my comments. Please wear a mask. Please don't give up. Please keep going on this. We're getting there. We will get there, but the virus can still get you. Please don't be one of the statistics, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'll touch briefly on the open space issue. I'll also remind everyone that in addition to the acquisition of open space and the preservation of historic properties, it's also used for the maintenance of all of those properties and the equipment to maintain them and the labor to maintain them. So that's many different types of expenses that are authorized under the Green Acres regulations for an open space trust, not just the acquisition of property. And that's included and discussed in our budget, as it was discussed in the budget hearing where we discussed the open space trust budget this year. As far as the railroad tracks, so the railroad tracks are, as Mr. Schaefer said, one of my pet peeves as well. And we have oftentimes gone to great lengths to try to get to people at Conrail that actually have some authority to order the repair of those crossings. Once again, we're on that track. Mr. Happ from the Public Works Department and Mr. Mazzi from our engineering firm CME. We're also looking for an additional issue with the Conrail tracks related to drainage along the back side of Churchill Avenue. So there's another purpose for us to attempt to get a hold of people from Conrail as it relates to their property. So Mr. Schaefer, I have your cell phone number. I'll keep you posted as we make some progress, hopefully, on where we go with the railroad tracks. But my end goal would be to have them removed as well. They serve no purpose at this point in time. As far as Catalpa, I know that I've reported this at other meetings, but probably not at a council meeting. Everything is done as far as the design of Catalpa, and all permit applications to DEP have been submitted. The holdup for the build out of Catalpa has been environmental and archaeological. As seems we just about to turn the corner, DEP comes up with another requirement for us. One was an archaeological study on the site to determine if there had been any Native American activity on the site. And then there was an investigator from the DEP who found a wood turtle approximately a quarter mile to the west of the property in a stream that flows into a stream that has a crossing, and that caused a redesign of certain parts of the park because it increased the buffer for the stream corridor. And so now we're just waiting for the final approval on the permit applications from the DEP, and then we can go out to bid. Our consulting engineer is prepared to put it out to bid once we get those permits in hand. So that is Catalpa. And I'm trying to think if there was anything else, Mr. Mayor, did you ask me to cover?
Now I will throw in to Mr. Guy. I really don't know what a budget shortfall is. I mean, other than everything that we would love to do that we can't do. I would love to have a commuter parking space so that we could, and with a bus that we would reduce traffic, and I would love to have more transportation in town. There's a million things I would love to do that we don't have money to do. So I don't know what you mean by a budget shortfall. I know you have discussed the master plan with Mr. Healy several times, so I'm not going to take council time to discuss the.
No, actually, well, I might add to that, Mr. Mayor, just echoing what Mr. Raynone said earlier in this meeting, that the planning board, just like the Board of Adjustment, are separate entities and not under the authority of council, and they act as autonomous agencies. And the master plan is a product of the planning board, as I've said that here before, and it's not a product of the council, and it's not the document is not the responsibility of council. It is the responsibility of the planning board, and Mr. Healy, as their planner and our planner, the township planner, is the individual who prepares that that update when it's necessary.
Okay,
Mayor?
And other than that, if you need mulch right now, contact the Public Works Garage and schedule a delivery of mulch. We have all of our Christmas trees and leaves were all ground up, and mulch was created in 5 to 8 yard deliveries during the day. You can schedule it for morning or afternoon delivery.
that was,
That's all I got, Mr. Mayor.
that was the most important comment of the entire discussion.
Absolutely.
Okay, we are now on, someone tried to get my attention.
Mayor, I just wanted to mention real quick, and I don't want to speak for Mr. Guy, but I did remember something about the census. And I'm not sure what his question was, but I just wanted to bring up, I had forgot to ask earlier, with COVID, everything has gotten delayed, but is there a certain timeline for when census information, well, whether relevant to the things Mr. Guy was interested in or any other people are interested in, is there a timeline for when that will be put out and the form will be put out and how our website would carry it? Or, and I assume it's a question for the clerk, but I just want to throw that out there. Thank you, Mayor.
It probably won't come out until the end of the year, beginning of next year.
Wow.
I'm not sure with the audio, you're a little bit low, and I just.
What he said is it probably won't come out until the end of this year or the beginning of next year.
COVID.
Thank you. And that's to know nothing concerning our clerk or our municipal clerk's department. That's simply
Federal census. Yeah.
right. I just want people to realize.
Government.
Right.
Mr. Chase,
Thank you.
I can't hear you.
One thing I should have mentioned is that the master plan has been revised over the last several years. The final element is the circulation element, and that was put out to a consultant. Consultant submitted a draft. Members of the planning board commented on it, and it went back to the consultant, and now we're waiting for the final product. And when we get that, this revision will be complete.
Okay, we're now on to,
Mayor,
okay, yes,
if I
sir.
may, to the township manager, is that bird or turtle the same one that's holding up Phillips Road?
No, owl on Phillips Road. Owl, not turtle. We got a turtle, an endangered turtle at Catalpa, and a nesting owl within a quarter of a mile of the ravine on Phillips Road that during mating season, you're not allowed to do construction.
Okay, just want to check on that little turtle.
Nope,
I mean,
nope.
little owl.
Totally different beast. Literally.
Excuse me. Okay, maybe we could get a police escort for the turtle. That's it for council comments, township manager report. We are now on to number 9, council discussion items, and we're going to tee this off to our township attorney about cannabis legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, I provided the mayor and council with a somewhat detailed memo concerning the recently adopted cannabis legalization legislation. The part of it that is of impact and of importance to municipalities is that the legislature established a 180-day period from when the legislation was adopted that expires in August of this year for towns to take action to if they are going to prohibit any of the 6 classes of licenses within their municipality. The beginning of my memo lays out those licenses, and the township is going to need to make a decision relatively quickly as to what it wants to do, because, you know, working backwards from a date in August, we're going to need to adopt this ordinance finally, either at the last meeting in June or the first meeting in July, so that it is effective prior to the time that is established in the legislation. The most important part about, I shouldn't say the most important, one of the important parts about it is that if you do not take this action, you will be barred from 5 years from prohibiting any one of the licenses. So if you decide that you're going to allow all the licenses and then sometime next year think that, boy, we should have banned retail licenses, you will not be able to do it for a 5-year period. I think that I laid out many of the other provisions in the law, specifically the council, if they are going to permit licenses in town, are allowed to charge essentially a fee of up to 2% of gross sales. You need to make a determination whether or not you will seek the statutory maximum or some number lower than that. I also think that this is the time. It's kind of unclear to me in the law as to how they handle zoning ordinances, other than the fact that after this 180-day period, obviously what the legislative theory is, in 180 days, we're going to have all of the municipalities act as to whether they permit or don't permit licenses. Then in that period, there'll be regulations drafted as to how to apply for a license, and the department will begin to take license applications after that fact. They will submit applications in your town if you permit a license to determine whether or not you meet the application meets any other regulatory standards. I assume that means a zoning, but it's my opinion that you should also deal with the zoning issues at this point in time, so that you have a clear guidance for applicants for licenses in your municipality. If you decide to ban them completely, then you should, we should probably look at the zoning ordinance also to that effect. But we're having this discussion in public because it's a public policy decision by the council as to what they want to do. So with that, Mayor, I'm prepared to answer as many questions as I can. Understand that there are no state regulations yet. So there are some obviously holes in the way the legislation is drafted to allow the regulators to regulate. I certainly can, any questions I can't answer, I can go back and try to get you an answer from relevant state authorities.
Any council people have questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
So Lou, I want to make sure I'm clear on what you said. So if the council decides that we want to allow all 6 of the licenses in Untitled Township, you said we must take action. So what is the must take action? We need to enact the ordinance, a zoning ordinance?
No, well, so if you decide that you want to allow all 6 licenses, you don't have to pass an ordinance. The 180 days is what if you're going to pass an ordinance barring any of the licenses. What you should do in that 180-day period is, if you're going to allow all 6 licenses, you probably should take a look at have land use take a look at the zoning ordinance and decide where you would want them in the town, and then adopt the appropriate zoning ordinance.
Anyone else? Mr. Chase. You're muted.
Given that the cannabis firms apparently would like to have all types of license permitted in a town if they're going to come into a town. And if they come into a town, they can be a quite significant rateable, whether or not we adopt the 2% tax on it. I think we should have a positive ordinance that specifying essentially the cultivation, processing, wholesaling, the permitted use in the business and industry zone, and then the retailing and the delivery in the general business zone, which I think Mr. Dominack has told us is basically what our zoning would allow at present anyway. I think we would be making a positive statement that could attract business while making it clear where such uses would be permitted. And also, if we pass a positive ordinance, then we're not bound by this no change for 5 years. We could change that ordinance in the future if we wanted. So I think that to adopt a positive ordinance would be the best thing we could do.
You have a comment on that, Mr. Renew?
No, I essentially agree. I think that that's, if in fact you're going to allow it, I think that you should, much like any, it's a new industry that's now been created. You should make the judgments as to, what zones they're permitted in. Essentially, they're going to allow the legislation, if you don't have an ordinance in place, the state is going to allow growing, cultivating, manufacturing, selling, and reselling of items be permitted in all industrial zones in the municipality, assuming you have industrial zones, and that their retail stores will be a conditional use in all commercial or retail zones. I think that the best thing to do is to regulate it. And just so legislation like this tends to be written very broadly. When you say industrial zones, that's going to be one of those things that's open to interpretation. So it's easier for you to define it so you understand it with regards to how you define specific zones in your municipality. And the one question that I had, and Councilman Chase is probably better at answering this than I am, is, when I think of cultivating, I realize that many of these facilities are done indoors. So maybe they're not, is that something that is permitted in an agricultural zone, or is it just left for industrial zones because they're all basically indoor facilities?
I think that is a real question. I know that there was a case in, I think, Hamilton Township where a shrimp farming facility was erected in an agricultural zone, and the courts found it to be legal. So I'm not sure that we want a huge growing facility right on South Middlebush Road. We have enough controversy already. We might prefer to have them, as I say, in the business and industry zone. But it may even be argued by somebody that we can't deny it in an agricultural zone. But I would think that that may be something that will come up in the state regulations. But
sure,
I think we can try to take a positive stance on this.
Well, and the way I read the legislation, I think that the fact that they left out agricultural and put industrial in probably is the way the legislature dealt with the concerns that these facilities would then start to gobble up farmland. And I have seen some of in some of my municipalities, there's these hydroponic growing facilities. From the outside, you would not know that it's a warehouse. It looks just like a warehouse. So to have, to gobble up farmland, putting up essentially warehouse buildings, probably is not what the legislature intended to have happen. And I would question whether or not, on deed restricted farmland, you could even do it. The SADC would probably have to weigh in on that also. But I think those are all things that are about to come. But I think one of the things that we do, and this is a compliment to Mark Healy and to Vince, is we have learned from a planning perspective, it's better to anticipate and regulate it at our own pace, as opposed to waiting and reacting to, oh boy, I didn't realize that the state regulation was going to say X, Y, or Z. We'll do it, we'll regulate. I think that's the way to do it. If in fact what council wants to do is allow all 6 licenses, then we should do that.
Any other
Mr.
questions from council?
I
Yes.
have a question. And I guess this is maybe bigger picture, and I admittedly kind of lost track of this legislation, especially once I left the legislature. But are we at the point that you know of, right? Because there's only so much you could know, that because I know there was like a series of cleanups and changes. Do you anticipate anything that might still be pending that would impact our ability to regulate, or like are we kind of set? Whatever fixes or changes, that's not necessarily going to impact these 6.
So as you know, that there were 2 components to this legislation going through it, and I mean, they're broad categories, but there was the cannabis regulation part of it, and let's call it the social justice components to it. The last series of cleanups almost all dealt with that part of it, the social justice part of it, because and there are more cleanup bills coming, right? Senator Gopel has another piece of legislation in with regards to how you deal with juvenile offenders, and I think that you're going to see more of that. I don't think on the regulatory scheme it's going to change that much, because they need to get out and start to issue licenses. If they start to do cleanup bills on the regulatory side, then they're going to delay that process. I do think you're going to see, and once again, there's already been legislation dropped pretty recently about, permitting limited amounts to be grown at home and those kind of things. And that's going to be an interesting issue, because once again, I mean, I think those are all permitted uses in residential zones now. So because people grow tomatoes in their backyard, so it's going to be kind of a similar thing, but we'll see how that legislation progresses. But with regards to the licensing part of it, unless in the middle of the regulatory process, they determine that there's a problem, I don't think that's going to be the case.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Lou,
Yes, sir.
I assume when you were talking about us moving quickly on certain aspects of regulation, that would be where we would deal with things like hours of operation for retail, stuff like that, correct?
Well, so the answer is yes. And I think we should deal with all of those issues. I think down the road, and this is going to be, it's a new industry, so there'll be a new industry of legal challenges, is whether or not you can treat what is now a legal enterprise somehow different than some other legal enterprise. If Wawa can sell coffee at 2:00 in the morning, then why can't a smoke shop be open? And these kind of issues are not uncommon, because, I mean, 25 years ago, we were talking about limiting when gas stations were open because there was a rash of robberies at gas stations at night. And Bob probably remembers this. It started with one in Woodbridge.
Yep.
So there's a lot of case law about regulating businesses, but I'm going to assume that as long as you're not arbitrary, capricious, and unreasonable, that you'd be able to regulate those kind of things.
So we'll, I'm sure, be conscious of what you're saying as we go to work on this. I assume the first place would be the Land Use Committee. And I don't want to oversimplify it, but would it be right to say that the town ultimately should end up with some control flexibility, just like you would over a liquor license or a bar, where as long as you're not being like you said, capricious or arbitrary, that you do have some reasonable regulations that a town could put in.
Well, that's a good analogy to this extent, and this is where I think I agree with you and I don't agree with you. is we have very limited ability to regulate alcoholic beverage premises because there is a very comprehensive state regulatory scheme. So you're right. We could, the legislature tells us that we can prohibit bars from being within 1,000 feet of each other. Because they tell us we can do that. So we have very limited authority and we can do that. But there's things that we can limit hours of operation. But there are things that we can't do with regards to them because they are, we have to follow a pretty prescribed set of regulations. And I suspect that that's where you're going to be here too. Because everybody's going to get a state, the difference, and here's one of the big differences. Liquor licenses, you are the issuing authority locally. And if somebody does something wrong, you can, you sit as the ABC board. So if somebody violates local ABC laws and we file charges against them, they sometimes come to you. I don't think you're seeing any of that on this. I think this is all regulated. These are state issued licenses. You'll have input, but certainly you wouldn't be able to stop a license or pull a license. It's all going to be a state matter.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying. I wasn't suggesting it's a mirrors the liquor. I was just.
No, but it's a good
analogy
though. It's a good analogy.
Closest analogy I could come up with. So we should get to work on that as soon as possible. Is that correct? Okay. Thank you.
And like I said, and the reason is because I'm, once again, if you give me a deadline, I'm going to work backwards from it. I think that you need to have an ordinance introduced at the end of May or the beginning of June. So it's, next week is April.
Anyone else?
So I think if we're having a council discussion, are we also going to end this council discussion with what our position is on this?
We can certainly do that.
It would be helpful to staff because we're going to need to go.
Well, I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay.
Actually, I have a question before we get that far.
Okay.
Just on section 40, which is the taxation, is there a deadline on that?
I believe that there is, and I think it's the same 180-day period, but I will check, but I believe that it is.
And once we set it, it's set for 5 years?
I believe so, yes. Remember, what's happening here is people are going to invest in licenses in a town based upon a regulatory scheme. It's almost going to be like a time of application kind of rule. But I believe that that's the case. I'll check though.
I mean, because we change property taxes every year. So.
You do, but they're changed in the same manner everywhere. I think that, if people flock to Franklin because there's no tax, and then Franklin imposes a tax, I think that's the difference.
Okay.
I would say, Mr. Mayor, it's kind of like we have a hotel tax that's at a fixed rate, and that never changes, and you don't change that, and that rate's fixed by the state.
Okay. Councilwoman Francois, you had a motion?
Yeah. Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we allow Class 1 cultivation license, Class 2 manufacturer's license, Class 3 wholesale license, Class 4 distributor license, Class 5 retailer's license, and Class 6 delivery license in Franklin Township.
We have a second to that motion.
That motion.
Any discussion?
Would this include any statements about what zones they would be permitted in?
I think, so my opinion on that is I just want to hear from staff how they want to distribute things. Unless any council has a suggestion on that.
Ma'am.
Yes, Councilman.
Yes. Are we leaving up any of them, or are we accepting all of them in Franklin? Because Councilman just read them. Are we leaving some of them off, or are we accepting all of them?
No, she is named all of them. There are 6.
All of
places.
them,
She
okay.
named all 6.
Okay.
Any other comments? So the motion stands at allowing classes 1 through 6, with my side, with no setting of zoning now, but that will be listening to what staff has about zoning. Does the motion, I see it by shaking her head, that's part of, Councilwoman Francois accepted that as part of the motion. Who seconded it?
I did.
Seconded.
And do you accept that as in the second? So that is now the motion. Any other discussion?
To be clear, Mayor, we're, the part you added is not saying that we're gonna take the ultimate regulations from staff. We're gonna get their input. And then
Yes.
okay, I just wanted to be clear because the way you worded it, I didn't want anybody to.
Well, by law, council is going to have to pass any zoning.
Adopt an ordinance.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Just wanted clarity. Thank you.
This is a direction to prepare an ordinance, really.
Yeah.
Got it.
Madam Clerk.
Councilman Embarrasson,
Yes.
Councilman Chase,
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois,
Yes.
Mayor Kramer,
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pruitt,
Yes.
Councilwoman Udine,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vasanella,
Yes.
Councilman Wright.
Yes.
So it unanimously passes that Franklin is accepting of all classes of marijuana distribution. Anyone have any other comments or questions for the attorney, or does the attorney have any other comments?
Nothing other than I will kind of under separate cover keep you posted as to, Franklin is one of a handful of municipalities that are in an impact zone. That means that there is a portion of the funds that will be raised by taxation that will be spent in the municipality. I don't really have a clear view as to what that is, but it could be a substantial amount of money. So I will track that for you and let you know what it's, I don't know whether we'll know what it's likely to be, but we certainly will know the uses for that money relatively quickly.
And I would like to express my thanks to the legislature for making us an impact zone. And as an aside, Mr. Renone, it's dark out, so you could open those blinds if you'd like.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I appreciate that.
Okay. We are on to the approval of the minutes. I present the following minutes to Township Council for approval. The work session, regular meeting of March 9th, 2021 at 7 p.m. The executive session of the same date. The budget meeting of March 10th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion, corrections? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Embarrasson,
Yes.
Councilman Chase,
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois,
Yes.
Mayor Kramer,
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pruitt,
Yes.
Councilwoman Udine,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vasanella,
Yes.
Councilman Wright.
Yes.
So we're now on to the the approval of the warrants. Item number 11, warrants in the amount of $2,704,879.80 on March 23rd, 2021 are presented to Township Council for payment. To have a motion on the warrants. Got to pay our bills.
So moved.
We need a second.
Seconded.
Second.
Moved and seconded. These are the bills. This is us paying our bills. We have a motion and a second. Anyone wish to pull an item, discuss an item? Madam Clerk?
Councilman Embarrasson,
Yes.
Councilman Chase,
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois,
Yes.
Mayor Kramer,
Yes.
Councilman Oni Chaka,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pruitt,
Yes.
Councilwoman Udine,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vasanella,
Yes.
Councilman Wright.
Yes.
So we are now on to item number 12, the 2021 CDBG Community Development Block Grant Program. It is time for a public hearing of the 2021 CDBG applications. Do we have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Need a second.
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 The winner is Councilwoman Udine with the second. Forget the discussion. All in favor of opening to the public, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. We are open to the public for discussion of CDBG block grant only. This is not a general public discussion. There are 23 people on. Mr. McQueen, do your thing.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Anybody from the public wishing to speak on this, please use the chat function, raise hand feature. Again, if anybody wishing to speak, use the chat function, raise hand. If you're dialed in by phone, you can use *3. So, Mr. Mayor, I see Sharon Clark wishing to speak. She is unmuted at this time.
Okay, and we're going to allow 5 minutes for this. State your organization.
Hello, my organization is the Central Jersey Housing Resource Center, known as CJHRC. We're in Somerville. Thank you for giving me some time to present. It's a little different this time than being there in person, so thank you. This year, we're actually asking for $6,115.81. However, that's $1,000 less than prior years. We were actually fortunate to get more funding from HUD. Obviously, everybody's nervous about housing right now. We're thankful for the moratoriums, but we're getting lots of calls from renters as well as homeowners that are concerned about staying in their homes. So we're just hopeful that our application will be reviewed, and we're hopeful that will be funded. Again, we thank you for your past support, and I'll happily answer any questions that the committee or council may have.
I hear none.
Wait, I do have a question. So people that are concerned about losing their homes, how would you be able to help with that?
So there's some monies for the that we're telling them about. In addition to that, we're working with them with budgeting and savings. We have a savings match program, and we are trying to get them enrolled now so that they can use their $900 towards, PAC payments. And then we're working with them and their mortgage companies. Some of them are in forbearance right now. We're trying to extend it, especially if they are able to make payments, but they're not fully able to reinstate. So we've been successful with quite a number of people, and we're trying to get ahead of it before the moratoriums are listed and there might be legal things going on.
Thank you.
Sure.
My question is, would you handle the advertising of this money?
Yep. So we advertise all over the place. We do a quarterly mailing. We're also
Is still there? Ms. Clark?
share and spread the word, including working with legal services.
Ms. Clark, we lost some of what you said. Maybe you can repeat that. Answer.
Sure, we work collaboratively, and we would be getting the word out through Facebook, social media, on your website. We also put things in the county website, and you have a newsletter, so we're constantly getting the word out about our free services, and anybody that wants to contact us either by email, phone, we do virtual counseling, so we do it in many different ways, and we're here to help. and we will get the word out as we do now.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. McQueen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if Ms. Clark could hit the raise hand function in that chat to lower her hand. We have another caller, 908-342. 908-342, you are unmuted.
With the greater Somerset. Did you hear what I said already?
No, you were garbled. If you could start again, that would be great.
Oh, I'd be happy to. My name is Venetia Weeks, and I'm the Director of Grants with the Greater Somerset County YMCA. We had prepared a submission for the CDBG. It's a renewal of our same program that we were funded last year. And this is for the Franklin Township's After School Care Program in partnership with the Franklin Township School District. And it's about providing safety around water programs to the children, approximately 84 children each semester in grades K through 5 who are enrolled in the Franklin Township schools. So this, I'm sure you know that the Y is about youth development, and we are focused on this issue of safety around water because this was surprising for me to learn last year is that the second highest cause of death in children under 4 is drowning. So these are potentially life-saving skills and awareness that we can provide to the children that has a host of other benefits, but we're really focused on being cautious and aware and learning how to be safe around water. We were funded last year by the CDBG, and that program will take place in the fall. And so the 2021 funding would then take place in the spring so that as many children as possible could receive the program.
How many children do you think you could serve?
We are potentially serving 84 to 90 each semester, but as the grant writer, those are my numbers. The program director is also with me on this call. He can really, he's hands-on in the programs every day, and he can really answer questions if it's possible for you to unmute him.
And would that be, I just need a number or a name because.
It's a 781 number.
Okay.
And his name is Ben, and I've been working in after school for 30 years. I think he's the greatest. So anyway, he's here and can answer programmatic questions.
He is unmuted at this time.
Thank you guys again. My name is Ben Green. I'm the executive director with the Greater Somerset County YMCA. The Safety Around Water program, we are looking for, I think it was 80 to 90 individuals, but we are including it in all of our care program. So it would be open to all kids in the care program. We would break it up throughout the year, and we'd really do it 2 sessions, one in the spring and then one in the fall. Like Venetia had shared, it is one of the leading causes of death in youth, and it teaches the life skills and really the importance of the simple stuff of, asking for permission to get in water, as well as how to learn to float and kick off the ground and get back to safety if you do get into water.
Clear off the dining table.
So to answer your question, it could be the whole care program, but a minimum of 80 to 90 individuals.
Any other questions from council?
Yes, Mayor, I have a couple of questions. I can go?
Yes.
Okay. Who decides the students that participate? And in whether in Franklin or other towns you've done this, is there usually like a wait list, or how does the process go about as to who gets to partake?
So we open it up to all of the care families. I believe the funding targets specific income eligibility, which we would incorporate, but any family in our care program, we do open this up to.
And do you usually fill up the program where you have more people interested than spots available, or vice versa?
So it depends on the year. We're in a funky year, right, with all the COVID stuff going on, but typically we do have to limit it to a specific grade. And that grade level is usually the second grade. And depending on availability, we would expand it from there. Typically when we have it targeted at one grade, it does fill.
Yeah, okay, well, I applaud your efforts, and I don't know if you have any information on it. I know it may not be relevant to your grant, I don't know. But is there any in place anywhere, or is there any movement to encourage water safety to be part of a physical education or health curriculum in schools, in grammar school going forward?
So I can share my personal experience in Massachusetts at a YMCA. I was involved at their Old Colony YMCA, where we partnered with Stoughton and Easton Public Schools and made it part of the second grade curriculum. And in place of phys ed for every kid in the second grade for a semester, they would come to us. It's not a full semester, it's a 6-week program. They'd be bused to us for phys ed, they'd take the safety around water program, they'd be bused back to school to go about their time. That being said, that's really, in the Board of Ed's hands. There's a lot of great examples of schools that are partnering with safety around water programs. That's available from like Y of the USA, so the greater YMCA's resources.
So his 5 minutes are up unless someone has another question. Thank you. Mr.
Thank you, guys.
McQueen. Thank you.
Yes, we have Mr. O'Brien. You are now unmuted, Mr. O'Brien.
Hi, it's actually Ms. O'Brien.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. My name is Allison O'Brien. I'm representing the Franklin Food Bank. I head up the grants program for the food bank, and I'm also the assistant director of donor development. I would like to take this opportunity really quickly just to thank the town for their support throughout the years, but especially in the last year of the pandemic, which has been quite the adventure. So thank you. This year, as in years prior, we have 2 applications for CDBG. First, we have the Community Farm Project, which has been around for a while. We like it because it gives us the ability to supply our clients with fresh local produce,
Those pills now.
and it also keeps our volunteers engaged. This year, hopefully just for 1 year, we have planned to scale back project, which limits the number of volunteers due to the pandemic.
Can you hold up 1 second?
Sorry?
Can you hold up 1 second? I'm sorry, there's Mr. McQueen, there seems to be someone else blocking her.
Yeah, I've checked. All the callers are muted. I'm not sure if that's from one of the panelists. If everybody could mute if you're not speaking. I hear it as well, Mr. Mayor, but I'm looking and everybody.
Sharon Clark.
Yep, I'm muting now. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, I apologize, Ms. O'Brien.
That's okay. So just to continue on about the Community Farm Project, we hope that just for 1 year, we have planned a scaled back version of the project, which is going to limit the number of volunteers due to the pandemic. We are planning on growing just fresh Jersey corn, for which we will need to purchase just mostly fertilizer and seeds. On the facilities end of things, our goal is to improve safety and security of primarily the outside of the building for our clients, staff, and volunteers. And we hope to accomplish that in 3 ways. 1, we will be installing security cameras to protect the food, the program, and our clients, staff, and volunteers. Additionally, we would like to install lighting in our parking lot to improve safety during our busiest day where we have later client hours. And during the winter months when the days are shorter, lighting is going to be really key. And then finally, we want to install awnings to the client entrances as well as the distribution area. We are hoping to be able to reopen the market and run our client choice program at least partially this year. If and when we do that, there's a good chance that clients will need to wait outside, and we just like to provide them with at least a little bit of shelter when that happens. One last thing, since I have the floor, I just want to let everyone know that we are planning on running the Tour de Franklin again this year. It is our 32nd annual tour, and it's a completely virtual event. We have waived registration fees so that families and individuals affected by COVID can still participate. The information is on our website at www.franklinfoodbank.org. And that closes our presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions for the council.
Any council members have any questions? The food bank is no stranger, excuse me.
Exactly. I can't imagine what kind of questions we would have for the food bank. Thank you, food bank, for all that you do for our community.
Oh, thank you. That really means a lot to us. It does.
And I'll put in one little plug for the food bank. It is, they changed it from the Franklin Food Bank to the food bank, I believe, because some people think that they are part of the town, that they get money directly from the town, their operating expenses from the town. It's not true. It's from your generosity that they stay open.
Kramer.
You're welcome. Anything else? Okay. Okay, Mr. McQueen, anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Anybody from the public last call to speak on this, please use the chat function, raise hand, or *3 on the telephone. Mr. Mayor, I do not see anybody else wishing to speak at this time.
Okay, very good. If you could mute Ms. O'Brien.
Yep.
Okay, so do we have a motion to close for public hearing on the community development block grant?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of closing public discussion, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Public discussion is closed. We are now on to the Hamilton Street Special Improvement District Budget Resolution 2174, introduction of the calendar year 2021 Hamilton Street SID budget and set a public hearing date. Do we, well, I guess Mr. Healy, I'm sorry, Mr. Dominic will have something to say. Mr. Dominic Vincent.
Mr. Mayor, yes, what the Hamilton Board did this year is, given the uncertainty with the COVID pandemic, we mirrored last year's budget. So it's the same budget as last year. We did not expend very much last year because of the issues we had with COVID. So what we're introducing is the same budget that we had last year.
Okay, and will there be
There will be no assessment to property owners.
that was the word I was looking for.
We're using the funds in surplus.
Great. Madam Clerk, is there a date that we are setting?
April 27th.
April 27th. So do I have a motion on a resolution and with a date of a public hearing on April 27th? That sounded like a motion and a second there. Did you get those people, Madam Clerk?
Yes, I did.
You're very good. So a motion and a second. Any other discussion? That was quick. Madam Clerk?
Councilman Embarrasson?
Yes.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pruitt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Udine,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vasanella,
Yes.
Councilman Wright.
Yes.
Oh, it's my turn. Okay. So we're now on to public hearing and adoption on second readings of ordinance 4336-21, an ordinance amending the Renaissance 2000 redevelopment plan to establish land use plan requirements for a comprehensive development of the Churchill Millstone redevelopment area is presented for public hearing and final adoption. The public hearing has been noticed as required. To have a motion to open to the public.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Strong work, council. All in favor of opening to the public, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. We are open to the public on this item only, 3 minutes.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, anybody from the public wishing to speak on this ordinance, please use the chat function, raise hand feature, or *3 by telephone. I see Ally O'Brien still has her hand up. I'm assuming that's from last time. If you could hit the raise hand feature to lower your hand.
Well, unmute her just in case.
Yep. Ally O'Brien, you are unmuted. Do you wish to speak on this? Hearing none and seeing none in the window for people wishing to speak, Mr. Mayor, I do not see anybody indicating they want to speak.
I agree. Do we have a motion to close the public?
Motion to close the public portion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of closing public portion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Public session is closed. Do we have a motion on the item?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
I almost missed the days when Mr. Prasad would move every motion. Moved and seconded.
I was thinking the same thing, Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Francois likes that comment. Moved and seconded. Discussion. It would be now the time for Mark Healy to speak.
Well, I'm here. I did present at the time that it was when it was introduced, provided a summary of the ordinance. And I think Councilman Wright gave a good summary previous in this meeting. So I'm here to answer any questions that the council may have.
You could give us just 2 sentences. Mr. Healy.
I'm sorry, you want 2 sentences?
Sum it up in 2 sentences.
2 sentences. Well, this is putting in ordinance format the changes that the redevelopment agency worked out with the redeveloper of the Churchill Millstone mixed use and mixed Churchill Millstone residential zones. It lowers the overall density in those zones, incorporates open space requirements that are not currently in the ordinance, requires a better mix of market rate housing and affordable housing, encourages a greater mix of housing types, not just the multi-story apartment buildings that we've had so far, but also encourages other lower density housing varieties, and makes other changes to some of the bulk requirements and standards of those zones.
Excellent. That was 7 sentences.
I tried.
Any other discussion?
It was about 2.
2 run-on sentences.
They were run-ons, exactly.
Any other discussion or questions?
Once again, I want to thank our executive director for helping us move us in that positive direction. Councilman Francois and I definitely commend you and the planning board, which Dr. Chase sits on, for helping make this a positive experience for everybody. Thank you.
Yes, and I might add that it took us 2 years to get here. It was a long time coming. So thank you, everybody, for supporting it.
Any other discussion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, do your stuff.
Councilman Embarrasson,
Yes.
Councilman Chase,
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois,
Yes.
Mayor Kramer,
Yes.
Councilman Oni Chaka,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pruitt,
Yes.
Councilwoman Udine,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vasanella,
Yes.
Councilman Wright.
Outstanding, yes.
Outstanding. Ordinances on introduction and first reading, there are none. Time for the consent agenda. The items A through L, as listed on the consent agenda portion of this meeting, are presented to the Township Council for adoption. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Yes. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Anyone like to pull an item? Pretty straightforward here. Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Embarrasson,
Yes.
Councilman Chase,
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois,
Yes.
Mayor Kramer,
Yes.
Councilman Oni Chaka,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pruitt,
Yes.
Councilwoman Udine,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vasanella,
Yes.
Councilman Wright.
Yes.
There are no resolutions to be voted on separately. Old business. Do we have any nominations for boards, committees, commissions?
Mr. Mayor, can I just make a comment on appointments? I actually get to make certain appointments and I get to appoint people to the Shade Tree Commission. And on the attendee list today is Stephen Galuli. And he was just appointed to the Shade Tree Commission. So Deputy Mayor Vasanella, you have a new member of that committee that you just became liaison to. And I'd just like to congratulate Mr. Galuli and thank him for his interest in the Shade Tree Commission.
Those of you who are at our Memorial Day festivities will recognize Mr. Gould. There was a nomination or an application on the Citizens Leadership Forum for a Sid Kazmi. Did anyone want to nominate him for rec?
Yes, I would like to nominate him for the rec.
Okay. He applied for other boards, but they were all filled. Are there any other nominations for that position? Seeing none, we move by acclamation. All in favor of Mr. Kazmi, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Congratulations, Mr. Kazmi. Any other nominations?
Did we appoint Mr. Kuzma to the Cultural Arts Committee?
Yes, we did.
Last meeting.
We did that
did.
last meeting.
Yeah.
Any
I
other
thought-
nominations? Hearing none, there is no executive session. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.